Savannah Williams is an education major in her third year at Purdue University. She knew going in the math was not on her side.
I'm going to be a teacher and I won't make a whole lot of income in the future.
How to pay for her education without drowning in debt. Purdue offered an alternative. Instead of taking out loans, Savannah will pay a percentage of her income for 10 years after she graduates.
If I would have gone with a traditional loan, I would have had to pay it all off. You know, who knows how long that would have taken.
It's called an income sharing agreement, the latest attempt to tackle America's college debt crisis.
That crisis is massive, a $1.6 trillion drag on the economy, affecting people's ability to buy a home, buy a car, start a family for years after graduation.
Purdue's president says the program, now in its third year, shifts the risk away from the student.
Gives them certainty and some protection and safety. They're not going to have that much money borrowed, piling up compounded interest, whether they're doing well or not.
If the graduate doesn't work, she doesn't pay. And if she does really well, her total payments are capped. 2017 graduate Charlotte Herbert, who got a job as a technical writer making about $32,000 a year, financed her senior year with the program.
I think it's a good balance between you have to pay for school and keeping people from decades and decades of unmanageable debt.
Purdue says it's the first four-year college to offer income sharing, but the concept is taking off elsewhere in higher education as well. In San Francisco, Austin Allred co-founded the Lambda School, which teaches computer coding, free up front in exchange for 17% of your income for 2 years if you make $50,000 a year.
If your job as a school is effectively promising a job, it doesn't make sense that a student pays you a bunch of money and it doesn't work out on the other side. Schools don't want to do that for obvious reasons.
It's too soon to tell if income sharing will be the way everyone pays for college in the future. The programs are unregulated so far, and they still leave graduates with an obligation, not that much different from student loans. But this is one way some schools are trying to bend the curve of the price of admission. For On the Money, I'm Scott Cohn in West Lafayette, Indiana.
So how can students find the right school that they can actually afford to attend? Rob Franick is editor-in-chief of the Princeton Review. He's also the author of the 2019 edition of The Best Value Colleges. And Rob, thanks so much for being here.
Good to be back, Becky.
All right, let's talk first about what we just saw with Purdue University. This is a really unusual experiment. You pay 3 to 4%, getting out over a period of time. And is that a good deal?
It could be a good deal, but there are really very few schools that are doing it. Of course, Purdue is one of the newest ones, Norwich University, Clarkson University, upstate New York, relative handful, but there is an initiative in the Senate right now that says, listen, let's try to simplify the repayment process. One of those simplifications is going to be income share agreements. Same thing with the California State House.
I mean, I completely get it. It's a great way for a student to say, okay, I'm betting on my future.
Absolutely.
But my guess would be there are going to be some students who actually end up paying more by doing an agreement like this.
And that's what I think a lot of students don't know about. If you do better financially over those 10 years of time, and that's a traditional repayment time, then you could actually be paying much more for an ISA than for a traditional loan.
I mean, it's lower risk, and you're not going to be mired in debt, so I guess that's the trade-off people would be willing to take.
That's true, because it works on the inverse as well. If a student makes, generally speaking, less than $25,000, then those payments would stop.
Student debt is such a huge problem. $1.5 trillion. Is that a sustainable debt load? Is it going to continue to grow like this?
Well, it's a scary number, and it scares college-bound students and parents and counselors sort of advising them in the college process. But just to level set the number, $1.5 trillion also includes grad arts and sciences, law school, B school, med school, as well as for-profit colleges. So it brings it down well below the 40% mark for that $1.5 trillion. But it still is a scary number, but a lot of students just simply are not paying that number. If they're going to state schools, nearly 80% of all students across the country will go to a state university.
I mean, the other big problem is that for so many of those people who take out loans, they don't finish their degree, meaning that they never get the upside and they are saddled with the downside.
Which is the absolute soul-crushing part of it, that you didn't persist, you didn't succeed, but you're still saddled with the debt.
So in terms of what you figure out here for the best value colleges, I flipped through it, and there's a lot of state schools in it. There's some schools I've never heard of, but there's also schools like Johns Hopkins and Harvard. I mean, really expensive schools. What's the framework that you use for this? How do you find best value?
A couple of different things. We looked at 40 different factors overall. We started with a little over 900 schools, 200 schools in the book. Roughly 2/3 are private and 1/3 are public, but schools that we've all heard of. You know, many of the Ivy Leagues are in this book because they have great financial wherewithal. So Harvard, for example, can meet your financial financial need 100%, as well as some of the other schools. Some schools will meet it at 90%, 80%, 75%. But the thing that these schools are all doing is not making you mortgage out your future to actually pay for school.
Look, I think part of the problem is you don't know what kind of financial aid you're necessarily going to get. How does that process work? Does that in itself scare people off and keep them from actually ever applying?
It does. It is one of the things that we see most, crossing an expensive school off of your list of consideration when only looking at sticker costs. But the truth is, I mean, this is what I do for a living at Princeton Review, is do the homework so that when you're a college-bound student with your parents, with your counselors, that you can actually say, you know what, Bates College is charging nearly $69,000, but their average aid package is around $46,000, bringing that down to about what a student could expect to pay for 1 year of public college. So just kind of level setting it, diffusing some of the frenzy and giving you the information that you need when finding fit.
What's the biggest secret that people don't understand beyond what you just told us about the financial aid? What's the biggest secret people don't understand when they're going through this process, trying to figure it out? Things I would say, oh my gosh, if I knew that a year ago, if I knew that 3 months ago.
Yeah, totally. And one of the things that I say to students and parents, and I talk to a lot of them, $180 billion in aid, financial aid, is given out each year. That's a huge number. If you cross that stream with really doing well in high school, doing well in the SAT and ACT, then that factors in academic prowess, your academic merit. Combine that with need-based grants, and college can actually become affordable. And that's what I would love for students to know when they're sophomores in high schools and juniors in high schools, along with their parents.